Welcome back to MBU Reacts. Today we are checking out the best heel from every year in WWE from 2000 to 2025. Man, that's a lot of heels, and Vince McMahon got to be a few years.
The best heel, Vince definitely was the best heel for a couple years.
I mean, he was the heel the whole time. We just didn't know it, but
that is true. Randy, I know Randy got a couple years. Edge got a couple years. Yeah.
Yeah, real heels. Yeah, Edge up there. The Miz.
I don't think they can put him in there.
Probably not, but he was holding it down when he was beating up John Cena.
2000 era, like JBL and shit, I can see that.
That was good. He held the belt for a minute. JBL.
Yeah, we gonna see because I'm drawing
Chris Benoit.
I don't think he was a heel in the WWE.
That was foul.
But before we get into the video, man, subscribe to the. If you returning, please subscribe to the channel because we got a lot of returning viewers. If you new here, give us halfway through the video or give us 5 minutes into the video. If you like what we do, subscribe. We're trying to hit 100K so we can go full time and get our first plaque. But let's get into the video.
Every great babyface needs a great heel to work with. After all, what is Batman without the Joker or Sherlock Holmes without Dr. Moriarty? And this is true in WWE too, as there always has to be a great heel on the roster to challenge the top hero.
Vince,
but just
for sure,
who was the best heel from every year of the 21st century? Well, that's exactly what we're going to be looking at right now, starting with the best of 2000, Triple H. Yes, back at the start of the new millennium, there was no stronger heel in the WWF than the Game.
True.
And the reason for that was because this was when he began his role as an authority figure. At that point, though, he wasn't portrayed as the more benevolent figure he's seen as today. Rather, he was played in a way which showed him to be a megalomaniacal villain who was desperate to keep the world title around his waist at all costs. Obviously, then, this meant abusing his power at every opportunity, and that made him a great final boss to be taken down this year. But what about 2001? Well, that year, the title of greatest heel in WWF would move over to another person, none other than Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, we know this wasn't a heel turn which was well received in the moment, and it's one which has largely been credited with ending the boom period of the turn of the millennium period. But there was a lot of great things about it too, as if you go back and watch it now, seeing the Rattlesnake as that paranoid madman he was back then is very entertaining to watch.
It was funny.
Seriously, how could you not be entertained seeing him do things like try to serenade Vince McMahon with his acoustic guitar or get into schoolyard scuffles with Kurt Angle?
That was funny.
All of this is to say then, even if history hasn't looked back on it as fondly, Stone Cold was the best heel inside a WWF ring back in 2001. So with that said, let's move over to 2002 next, where our best heel of this year has to be Kurt Angle.
John Cena.
That's right. After narrowly missing out on the spot in 2001, 2002 saw the Olympic gold medalist rise to the top of the pile in terms of heels, as this was the year that, following the first brand split, he became a key part of the SmackDown 6, probably the primary villain of that sextet.
That was a smooth-ass rock bottom.
I'm just a sexy Kurt. Sexy Kurt. I make your ankles hurt. Ankles hurt. I'm just
he damn near put Shorty ass in the ankle like this.
For no reason.
For no reason. He put her in the ankle lock for no reason.
Randomly. He was on your side, Kurt.
Be part of the SmackDown 6, probably the primary villain of that sextet. And this put him in a great position because with a wealth of top babyfaces to work with, he was able to make a stamp in the company in a way he hadn't been able to do even during his rookie year. Yes, this was the year Kurt lost his hair during a match with Edge and had mad classics with the likes of Eddie Guerrero, all while keeping up his heel persona. But what of 2003? Well, that year, the best heel title would move away from Angle and over to The Rock instead. Come on now, how could we go with anyone else here? After all, 2003 was the year of Hollywood Rock, arguably the greatest incarnation of Dwayne Johnson. That's right, coming out to the ring and serenading us all with his trademark rock concerts, all while he was feuding with people such as Bill Goldberg and Steve Austin. This might be the peak of the Rock character overall. And if you need any further evidence of how heelish he was here, he retired the Rattlesnake at WrestleMania 19, taking away the biggest babyface fans had back then. Sure, it might have only lasted through the spring, but Hollywood Rock remains an all-time
has a
heel.
little
From
ding-a-ling.
2004, though, that mantle of top heel would have moved over to our next subject instead, JBL.
John Bradshaw
Now, this is one you
Layfield.
really had to be there for
You're
because
fired.
it's impossible
Come
to
on.
overstate
Come on,
just
Bradshaw.
how much people hate.
He didn't
He
say I was
said
fired.
you was fired. He didn't say I was fired.
And that was the start
That
of the
was
heel
the
turn.
turn.
That was kind of perfect now looking back at it.
This nigga went from being a
He was-
beer
His
drinking
hair was pure
a-hole.
black. This nigga showed up, cut his hair,
Cut
brown
his hair
now.
brown now. This nigga looked like an upstanding citizen, like an a-hole.
Hated JBL in the
Who
moment.
could tell
After
him
all,
and-
this was
yeah.
someone who had up until then been a career mid-carder and was now
Facts.
suddenly being given the top prize in the entire company. As you would expect then,
You
this
tell
did
that
not
don't
exactly
even look
endear the
like him
Texan
no
towards
more.
fans,
He's
and the
like,
hatred
who's
he
different
received for this
people?
was
Why
only
the
furthered by the
Bradshaw?
fact that he would be
That is
playing his
Bradshaw.
J.R.
You
Ewing-inspired
lying?
tycoon up to the hills at any and
He
every
should do the
opportunity.
clothesline from here.
Yes, back in 2004, John Bradshaw Layfield
Which
was
is
the
the
peak of what a
easiest
villain could be in
finisher to use.
WWE, and for that reason, we can't go with any other option for the best heel of this year. That said, we can for 2005,
Edge.
and the best heel of this year has
Rated
to be
R
Edge.
superstar.
What made Edge such an effective heel in 2005? Well, after news leaked out to the public that Adam Copeland had been having a real-life relationship with Lita, then girlfriend of Matt Hardy, it instantly turned the Canadian into the most disliked man in the industry.
Oh, he got
So
punched for
doing
real.
all he could here then, he leaned into the
lost
hatred
this.
by morphing into the rated R super.
Superstar.
But y'all want to make this real? All right, bet.
Vince is the one that wanted to make
That's
it
what I
real.
said. You want to
like,
make it real because you found out. I'm
that's
gonna
the
hit.
Matt leaked that shit.
I'm gonna hit this nigga for real. Yeah, he's trying to embarrass niggas, and I ain't mad at him. But I'm finna steal off him if that's what we doing. I'm stealing off him if that's what we on. Jeff called me. I hate you, Edge. I hate you. I was like, that sound like a child.
Right.
Jeff, what you got going on, bro?
What you got going on, my boy? We'd have been jumping that nigga.
Real talk
Real
backstage.
jump. They could.
Because they talk about they was everybody was best friends. They said them three was the closer friends. I got hurt. You banged my girl.
You banged my girl while I was out injured, and y'all was on the road together still, and you banged her.
You couldn't contain yourself.
For one, somebody would have been beating her ass, but for sure, Edge, we're jumping you.
As soon as we come back, we're jumping you. Gets fired the first day back.
Right.
Superstar, the top heel on either of the two brands WWE had at the time. So over would this get him as a villain? In fact, it would be here he became the first ever Mr. Money in the Bank. And it was that contract which also allowed him to carry over into 2006
You look
as the
smug.
best heel of that year too, as it happens. Why is that? Well, January of 2006 was when Edge chose to cash in his Money in the Bank contract on a prone John Cena and steal the WWE title
when they
away
was
from
having
him
sex?
briefly. Needless to say,
One of her
then, this
boobs
only got him
leaked for
even
real.
more
Oh,
over
I
as a
didn't even
villain,
know.
and in one fell swoop, truly rocketed him up to the main event scene. Sure, there were other great bad guys in WWE at that point too, but back
Rated
in
RKO.
2006, none of them were on the level of the Rated R Superstar. But what about 2007? Well, that year we got a different
Vince
kind of
McMahon,
heel,
boy.
as this was the
He's
year
a
of
heel
Vince
for a long
McMahon
time.
himself. Yes, that's right. 2007 was the year Vince McMahon headed into
Rest in
WrestleMania
peace.
23 as arguably the top heel on the show, as this was when he was standing in the corner of Umaga
Umaga
during
had
the
a
Battle of the
manager, and I don't know
Billions.
what happened to
And
him.
while he didn't actually
Armando
wrestle here,
Estrada.
the night would end with him getting his head shaved in the middle of the
By
ring.
Donald Trump.
But that wouldn't be the last we saw of the boss in 2007,
By
as
Donald
once
Trump.
he was newly
That was
bald,
the only
he
time I was rooting for that nigga.
Said after that it's up.
Who would have known we would not be seeing eye to eye with this nigga?
continued to take out his frustrations on the audience by
Bald
feuding
nigga.
with the likes of Bobby Lashley
He had a
over
weird
the
shaped ass head.
WWE
Peanut
title.
head.
But let's move away from that year for now and over to the following year instead.
did not
as
want
in
no
terms
smoke
of
with
bad
Bobby.
guys, 2008 would be the year of
Jericho.
Chris Jericho.
And then when he came
Yes,
back-
2008 was the year Jericho returned with an all-new
was a
character.
good heel when he had
His
the
suit and
double
tie-clad
belts.
villain
Remember, he
who
was the
always
first
spoke
undisputed.
softly and purposefully
But
in the
that-
same manner
he
as
was
Anton
getting
Chigurh
overshadowed by
from No
other heels
Country for
that
Old
year.
Men. Yes, this was a true high watermark for him as a heel, and it's one which gave us that absolutely great feud between he
Yes.
and Shawn
Him
Michaels
and AJ
throughout
had
the
a
summer
best-
and autumn.
had a fire
In
ass
fact,
feud.
this one could have very easily continued to be the best villain for years to come under slightly different circumstances. But alas, by the time 2009 came around, things had changed slightly, and there was an even better heel walking through the halls of WWE. Our
when
next
they was
entry,
punk kicking
Randy
niggas.
Orton.
Before it
What
started
happened in
being
2009 to
concussions.
suddenly turn Randy Orton into the best heel in all of WWE? After all, prior to this, he'd been a good villain for sure, and even a good babyface on occasion, but never someone who felt like he was at the absolute top of the pile. Well, this was when he began feuding with his old friend and foe Triple H again, and in the process, he kickstarted the Age of Orton. That's right, this was the year of the Viper's intermittent explosive disorder, as he picked off the McMahons one by one, all en route towards heading into the WrestleMania 25 main event for his showdown with the Game. Sure, he would lose this one in the end, but that didn't matter too much in the grand scheme of things, as even after he did...
I ain't gonna stunt, they was letting Triple H win too many feuds back then. It was some of them feuds he should not have won.
There was a few of them, Booker T included. He shouldn't have won that one.
Nah, he definitely shouldn't have won that feud against Booker T, and he might have should have lost that feud to Randy. Because I think he won the first feud. Then when he first kicked him out of Evolution.
Did he win?
I think he won that feud. Because I don't remember who Randy took the belt off of, but he took the belt off Randy.
Randy's heel work remained strong, so strong that he continued to be the top villain of the final year of the 2000s. But what of the new decade? Who would make their stamp as the top villain when 2010 came around and it felt like a whole fresh slate had been laid down in WWE? Well, for our money, that award would have to go to the leader of the Nexus, Wade Barrett. And we know the Nexus didn't exactly end up meeting expectations, as after looking like they were going to be the second coming of the NWO on night one, they instead turned out to be more NWO 2000. But none of that can take away from how effective they were during their initial hostile takeover of Raw. And right there at the helm when they were doing this was the man leading the charge, the one calling all the plays for his minions, Wade Barrett. For this reason alone, then, we have to consider Barrett to be the best heel of 2010. Hell, that's exactly why he would spend much of the autumn locked in a feud with John Cena, with this alone pretty much making him the top heel by default, as Big Match John was easily still the top babyface then. That said, by the time 2011 came around, he would no longer be the top bad guy in WWE. No, by that point, the Nexus had fizzled out, and we moved on to another act instead, someone who started the year as WWE champion following the money.
CM Punk, that nigga took over Nexus. The new Nexus, he was the leader of that shit.
The bank cash-in, The Miz. That's right, this was a great year for Mike Mizanin, as he also went into the main event of WrestleMania against the biggest babyface in the promotion, John Cena. And not only did he hold his own here, he retained his gold. Sure, Mike Mizanin might have been a third wheel in the larger Cena-Rock storyline, but he still became one of the very few heels to ever retain in the closure of the Showcase of the Immortals, and that alone earns him a spot in today's video. And we've not even talked about his run as part of the Awesome Truth, which happened that autumn, another underrated spell from the Ohio native, as it put him right back in the main event scene post eventually dropping the top prize in the company to Big Match John. Really, it's hard not to look back on 2011 overall and see it as a high watermark for
Daniel
the Miz.
Bryan gotta be in here.
But what of 2012? Well, by then, a whole new top heel act would have risen to the forefront. One who started off as a beloved babyface, but then earned the ire of fans with his actions. Who are we talking about here? Why, CM Punk, of course. Now, 2011 really was the big year for CM Punk, as that was when his pipe bomb promo turned him into the most talked about man in the wrestling industry for a while there. But throughout that period, he was very much positioned as the babyface trying to overcome the Authority. Come 2012, however, with his WWE title run still going, he decided to freshen things up by turning heel.
Was he messing with DeBella's mom or something like that?
I have no clue.
He was on an episode of
Total Divas or
that John Cena show.
Oh, the John Cena one. I don't remember what that show was called.
I was like, why is Johnny Laurinaitis there? Why is he in that crib?
Johnny Laurinaitis, man. People power. No, that's how that nigga talked.
I love it. That's right. Going from hero to villain in one fell swoop, Punk gave himself a whole new list of challengers to work with here. And no matter who came up against him, he always managed to walk out of the match with the gold still around his waist. So really, there's no way we couldn't consider him the best heel of 2012, as he was literally the heel world champion for the entirety of the calendar year. But what of 2013? Well, when it comes to that year, we have one choice for top bad guy in WWE, and it's...
He was on For the Love of New York.
Yeah, he was on the New York show, yeah.
CM Punk again. Yes, we're doubling up here because while he did spend the majority of the year as a babyface post-return from hiatus in late spring, Phil Brooks started out 2013 still very much a heel and still very much WWE champion. And with this title run by then reaching 434 days in length, it was starting to be etched into history as the longest of the modern day in WWE at the time. Who would Punk defend against as the year began? Well, this would be The Rock, and that would take the Second City Saint to a whole new level of status again. Sure, The Rock may have beaten Phil for the title, but this didn't stop him from spending a couple of months continuing to feud with the Great One anyway after the fact. And once that was over,
they fed him to The Rock for the belt for him and Cena to have another match.
The Undertaker in his undefeated streak at WrestleMania 29. Alas, though, like with his Dwayne Johnson feud, Punk would come out of this one the loser. But even then, he'd still made his case for the strongest heel WWE had in 2013, just based on those two programs alone. With that said, let's move over to 2014, a year in which the Second City Saint would not be able to repeat.
For me, it was Randy when he was the Legend Killer, or for real Bray when they was having him be the new face of fear. Fear is what they was calling him. Them was the two.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like,
Brock didn't need that streak.
Once you say he's the new face of fear, I'm like, that right itself.
Yeah.
Him walking out on the company in January. No, when it comes to the best heel of 2014, this one has to go to the game himself, Triple H. That's right, 14 years after he was the best heel WWE had in 2000, Paul Levesque was at it again. And what makes things even more impressive for this go-around is that he wasn't even a full-time wrestler by then. No, come the mid-2010s, the game was very much a full-time authority figure. That said, he would still hit the ring from time to time, and this made him the perfect foil for Daniel Bryan to have to overcome in the lead-up to WrestleMania 30, as all anyone wanted to see heading into this show was the American Dragon coming out on top. But even when Triple H fell to Bryan at WrestleMania and gave him a clear path toward winning the top prize later that evening, he didn't stop being a thorn in the side of the babyface roster. No, throughout the rest of the year, as leader of the Authority, he'd constantly make life a living hell for any good guys on either Raw or SmackDown. Hell, at one point he'd even contribute greatly toward the downfall of the Shield when he convinced Seth Rollins to betray his brothers Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns and instead throw his chips in with the bad guys. And as it happened, it would be that move which eventually led to Seth Rollins becoming the top heel of 2015 in WWE. Now, we know he was already a great villain the year prior, but what made Seth stand out all the more in 2015 was that this was the year he committed the heist of the century at WrestleMania 31 when he cashed in his Money in the Bank contract right in the middle of the main event between Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. And once he did that, it was an easy path toward him walking out as WWE Champion. Needless to say then, with the Authority by his side, Seth was able to spend the vast majority of the year as the top dog in the entire company, all while he was continuing to draw massive heel heat everywhere he went. So there's no way we could ever consider anyone else as the best villain of that 12-month period then. Now when it comes down to it, 2015 was the year of heel Seth Rollins, just as 2016 would end up being the year of heel AJ Styles. Of course, in hindsight, it's easy to say it was always clear that AJ Styles was going to be a megastar as a heel in WWE.
The nigga kept saying, hashtag beat up John Cena.
We gonna beat up John Cena.
That was his whole thing. Beat up John Cena.
Him in the club.
Yep.
WWE. After all, his work in Japan as the leader of the Bullet Club proved how good he was in this role. But when he first joined WWE, there were a lot of concerns that Vince McMahon just wouldn't know what to do with him. Thankfully, though, after a ropey first couple of months, the Phenomenal One soon settled into his role after two great feuds. The first of which saw him go up against Roman Reigns, and the second of which saw him turn heel on John Cena. And after coming out on top in that latter feud, Styles would go on to dethrone Dean Ambrose as WWE Champion just 1 month later, with this putting the button on how great a year he was having. So for these reasons, he's the clear top heel of 2016. But what about 2017? Well,
Jinder.
That would go to a more
Don't hinder the
Jinder.
The modern day Maharaja.
Yes, this was something no one would have seen coming as the year was getting started. With the main
Why they got my man's the day funny to them all?
I don't remember this interaction.
But
they gave him that because they was finna go to Saudi. We all know why.
He stole the belt before and was taking pictures with it before he won it.
We all know, and I was at that pay-per-view when he won. Niggas was surprised. I just told them, I was like, ain't no way they let this nigga win. They just let this nigga win. That was literally my next message to them niggas.
Yes, this was something no one would have seen coming as the year was getting started, with the main reason for this being that, for a decade or so prior, Jinder Mahal had been treated like a complete jobber. However, after randomly winning a #1 contendership match on an episode of SmackDown, Mahal found himself challenging Randy Orton for the WWE title. and not just challenging him, but
won
beating him.
Backlash.
That's right. It was one of the
I was
biggest
there.
upsets in
You
WWE
was beating
history,
people clean.
and one which instantly rocketed Jinder up to the top of the card as the primary heel in the entire promotion.
Oh
if
yeah, I
only
forgot he
for a
had
little
Great Khali
while.
come back in that Punjabi
Sure, by the time
match.
the autumn was over, the
Punjabi prison
Canadian would be
match
right back to
help
square
him
one.
win.
But for 2017 at least, he could call himself WWE's #1 bad guy. And that's something which will never be able to be taken away from him. But
He
who would
did
take
beat
that mantle
Shinsuke.
in 2018?
Clean.
Well, that would go to an NXT
Tommaso
superstar.
Ciampa, yes.
Someone who was riding high there by
He was
then.
definitely
Someone by the
a good
name
heel
of Tommaso Ciampa.
in 2018.
Now, if you were watching NXT during the glory days of the black and gold era,
was.
then you'll remember this one all too well, as
I
it was
was there.
probably to this day the
Once
greatest
again,
feud that
Takeover
brand ever put
Chicago.
on. The long-term war between Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa.
I was there for that
and
one,
by
too.
playing the heel in this equation, Ciampa was able to raise his stock massively. So much would he do this, in fact, in 2018, he was quite possibly the best heel in the entire wrestling industry.
was.
Someone who was
And that's when
operating at a
Vince
level no
decided
one
he
else
was gonna
was.
sabotage NXT after that, because Tommaso Ciampa was the best heel in all of WWE. NXT was putting on the best matches over all of
Their
WWE.
pay-per-views was blowing.
Blowing that main roster pay-per-views out the water back
Easily,
then.
easily.
And Vince said, you know what, I'm going to sabotage this because I didn't have my hand in this. He egotistical
This was staring at.
boss.
This was watching them from a high place. I don't like this.
I don't like this at all. I'm finna drop a dime on them niggas.
Seriously, the heat he would get every time he came out through the curtain at Full Sail University was outrageous. And this only got worse once he was able to beat Aleister Black for the NXT title in the summer. Yes, people remember this to be the high watermark of the developmental brand for a reason. And while part of that reason has to go down to the work of Johnny Wrestling, an equal part has to go down to the excellent heel character the Blackheart gave us. Come 2019, though, it would be back up to the main
Daniel
roster for
Bryan.
the best heel of the year.
That's what I
as
said, Daniel
2019
Bryan,
would
when
be
he had the
year
eco-friendly
of Daniel
belt,
Bryan.
he definitely
sure,
was
it
the
might have
best
seemed
heel.
crazy in the moment to take one of your biggest babyface stars, someone who had just
Definitely was a
miraculously returned
huge
from a
babyface.
career-ending injury, and turn him heel only
They said,
6
"Guess
months
what?
after he laced up his boots again, as WWE did
This
with the
was
American
fickle.
Dragon in late 2018.
kept
But this
yelling that
ultimately
shit.
worked out in the
Fickle.
end, as it gave us
You
his
fans
excellent
are- you
2019
fans are
run
fickle.
as the planet's champion. Yes, this new
Everybody's
heel
like,
gimmick saw
okay.
him rise to incredible heights by the time WrestleMania 35 came around. In fact, it was here that 5 years after fans had hijacked the showcase of the Immortals on his behalf, Bryan was able to flip the script and have people hate him and be desperate to see him lose to Kofi Kingston. Yes, there's a reason the Aberdeen native considers this his proudest moment in WWE, and it's because his heel work here was so strong and so effective in getting Kofi over that final hurdle. By the time 2020 came around, however, the wrestling landscape and the landscape of the world as a whole
Damn,
would
that
be
was
very
2020
different.
when that nigga
Luckily,
first
then, it was
turned
during
heel?
this year that we got the rise of an
Damn.
all-new heel force in the tribal chief.
Well, y'all got to get that shit to him all the way up to 2024.
Yes, there were a lot of factors which went into
To be honest,
WWE getting
23.
hot again during
I
the
told
early
you
to
it was
mid
COVID,
2020s.
at least
23.
Part of it was Cody Rhodes returning. Part of it was Triple H taking over as head booker. But possibly the biggest part of all was Roman Reigns developing his tribal chief character. And it was in 2020 that he did this, as after taking a sabbatical from the ring and allegedly refusing to return again unless he be allowed to tap into his dark side, he came back at SummerSlam with Paul Heyman by his side, ready to form a bloodline around him. Almost immediately then, Roman went from being considered a modern-day Lex Luger, someone who was failing to get over in his role as top guy, to more of a modern-day John Cena.
This nigga was
a true
wearing
top
contacts.
star.
Yes,
of
this
the
nigga.
promotion.
I thought
And none of that happens if he
I was
doesn't.
like, he had green eyes. I was like,
I just realized that nigga eyes. This nigga was wearing contacts the whole time. Y'all funny as hell.
he had green eyes for what? Flash black.
Turn heel here. Hell, so successful would this turn be, it would also make him the top heel of 2021 as well. Come on now, by the time 2021 came around, it was very clear that
Yeah.
Roman Reigns was going to be the top heel in WWE for a while yet, as by this point his tribal chief character was really starting to pick up speed.
No, it was.
After all, it was here that he fully solidified the bloodline of Jimmy Uso, Jey Uso, and Paul Heyman around him. And it was also here that he began
Sammy.
teasing another member
Sammy
in the honorary
Uso.
Uso, Sami
Look at-
Zayn.
look at
Hell, it was here
That's
that he
when he
ran
ain't
through
like
just
that.
about every
Yeah.
big baby face on
Sammy
the roster,
Uso.
with him making particularly good use of his
He
heel
shoulda let
powers at
Jay fight
WrestleMania
him
37 when he stacked and pinned both
I
Edge
remember
and
that.
Daniel
That was
Bryan on the
crazy.
main event of night 2.
They was both on their
so
way out the
it
door,
really
though.
should come as
Well,
no
not
surprise
Edge,
to
but
learn
Daniel
that
Bryan
he'd be the
was.
dominating villain throughout this 12-month period, just as he would continue to be the dominating villain into
Said
2022
they gotta have
as
that
well.
at least 24
That's right. As the new
23
decade fully
Paul.
got going, Roman Reigns remained the top heel in all of WWE.
when that nigga
But then how
didn't
could it
talk.
be any different when this was the year he unified the WWE and Universal titles to become undisputed WWE Universal Champion? Really, by that point, there was absolutely no question as to who the top dog was in WWE. It didn't matter who stepped to him, Brock Lesnar, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, they all fell to his might.
Yeah, they did.
And it was in 2022 where Roman Reigns further bolstered his ranks by adding Solo Sikoa to the bloodline, something which only made his victories all the more assured whenever it came time for the bell to ring. Honestly, in every way here, he was the final boss of the company and the all-conquering bad guy everyone wanted to bring down. But no one could bring him down. Now, as WWE's hot streak fully got going, he'd be the guy with all the gold around his waist. And this meant that heading into 2023, he'd continue to be the guy with all the gold and all the power, with this making him
Almost
the top
all
heel
the
of
gold.
that year too. Yes, just when people thought the reign of the Tribal Chief was over, he'd continue on for another year, as
Yeah,
after beating
jumpy.
both Sami Zayn at Elimination Chamber in
I was
Montreal
like,
and
just
Cody
jump.
Rhodes at WrestleMania 39, it felt like there was no one left to even challenge Roman anymore. The only question left at this point was, could anyone ever beat him for that title? And if they could, would someone then come and claim his spot as the top villain in all of WWE? Well, the answer to those questions would be yes, as it turned out, because in 2024, after finally losing to Cody Rhodes, Roman would find himself being usurped as the #1 heel by none other than Dominik Mysterio. Sure, the
Dirty
heel turn
Dom,
might have
you're
happened in
not wrong.
2022, and
Yeah,
it might have
Dirty
carried on all
Dom.
the way through 2023,
The time
but it was really in
jail changed
2024
me.
that
I was
Dirty Dom
dying.
fully established himself as a
I
top
was
heel
like,
in
nah, you
WWE.
funny, bro.
And the way he did this was by dropping his mommy in Rhea Ripley and instead
Dom.
aligning himself with Liv Morgan. That's right, while Dom and Rhea were always quasi-babyface on account of just how much fans loved them together, there was no such issue with Dom and Liv, and this allowed him to overtake the Tribal Chief during the mid-2020s. Such a strong heel would Mysterio be all throughout
You
2024,
just look like a
even
creep
others
with
like
a
Gunther,
mustache, bro.
Solo Sikoa, and the mighty Drew McIntyre couldn't touch him. No, Dirty Dom was in a league of his own here, a league which he wouldn't be booted out of until 2025, and a new top villain came along. Who are we talking about this time?
John Cena.
Who else but John Cena?
I don't think
You know
John
they
Cena
was-
is
I
a
knew they
top
was gonna
villain
give it
at
to him,
all.
But I knew they was gonna give it to him.
His heel run was ass.
Yeah, but I knew they was gonna give it to him because he John Cena.
Y'all could have went Seth Rollins if you really wanted to. I mean, he just turned heel, but shit. Y'all could have went Dom again. No, dead ass.
Nah, that was funny though. You could have went Jay Paul or something.
I wouldn't even go Logan Paul. Hell no.
My bad.
I'd have went Dom again. To be honest, I mean, granted, the fans love him. I'd have went Dom again. John Cena heel turn was ass, and his heel run was ass.
Yeah, he wasn't committed to it really.
Because he didn't want to do it.
Nigga said that fucked up the him and R-Truth thing.
Right. It was.
Yes, John Cena's heel run has been divisive amongst many fans, with some considering it to be a bit of a disappointment, but there
Me.
are others who have enjoyed it. After all, it is the mythical John Cena heel turn people have been talking about for decades now, and one they never got for so long.
it's
But it's
not.
undeniable that the initial turn, which happened at Elimination Chamber earlier this year,
It was
an
shocking,
all-timer.
but
And seeing him
it
get to run
wasn't
the gauntlet
good.
of old foes like Randy Orton and CM Punk throughout his retirement year, all while playing the role of the bad guy instead of the top babyface, which he normally does, it's been a special sight to witness. Sure, we do expect him to turn face again before he hangs up his boots, but even if that happens, he'll remain
he did.
worthy of a spot in today's video,
Immediately.
just as everyone else we've looked at today.
Oh man, yeah, John Cena.
I'll let you put that one right there because it was unexpected, so I'll give you that. But Dom for 24 and 25, to be honest. I've been watching. Dom still is the best heel, to be honest. Well, it's Seth right now, but if you got to go first half of 25, it's definitely Dom still.
Yeah, I would go with Dom still because I was just racking my brain right now trying to think of them. I was like, Solo ain't done enough. Even though I like the
I
Solo
forgot about Solo.
now that he's like himself.
Well, if you
Put
do, you
personality
can
in it.
do Solo for 25 too, but I would still go Dom.
Yeah, but I'm like, did he win enough? Like, make enough noise? Because as a heel, you got to make enough noise. Like, win a belt and You know,
I mean, he was the U.S. title. He was holding the U.S. title. He beat Roman for the Ula. No, he ain't beat the nigga for the Ula Fala. Yeah. He took the Ula Fala and was beating that nigga up and shit.
True.
But I'm not mad at this list though. It was pretty accurate, to be honest. I might have went Punk for 2011, but I'm not mad at the Miz.
I'm leaving.
Yeah.
It was straight though. It ain't bad except for the last bit, but
well, if we put this out and y'all able to see this, we'll bring y'all more.
YouTube don't snap this like they Thanos and take it to the oblivion. But we'll see. Anyway, let us know. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know we post, because we post 2 to 3 videos every day, sometimes even 4. You can check us out right here at MB Reacts at 12 p.m., 4 p.m., 8 p.m. Central Time. And you can always check out the playlist with over 2,000 videos. I guarantee you'll find something you like. We could do more wrestling if this work out, but we also got AMP and RDC content, a lot of streamer content on here that we checked out, fan-made music or just music in general reactions, fan-made film reactions, and a whole bunch of other stuff from trailer reactions to what we think about, a whole bunch of other stuff. But anyway, this is Tree, I'm Green, this is MB Reacts, and we'll be back with more reactions. We'll holler at y'all later, man. Peace.